Let's step out of the blinding Amazonian sun for a minute and into the dark, whispering corners of a city built right in the heart of the jungle. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're exploring the chilling, eerie urban legends of Manaus. Now, this isn't just about cheap jump scares. We're looking at how a city's history, its tragedies, and the wild, completely untamable Amazonian nature surrounding it have birthed legends that, well, they simply refuse to die. So turn down the lights, get comfortable, and let's explore the creeping shadows of the Amazon's capital. When we think of Manaus, we usually picture the breathtaking meeting of the waters, the lush canopy, and all that incredible wildlife. But beneath that postcard-perfect surface lies a totally different nocturnal reality. Okay, let's dive into this, because the stories we're about to uncover reveal a deeply unsettling journey. The supernatural phenomena reported here aren't just random ghostly encounters. They are dark reflections of primal fears, historical tragedies, modern decay, and yes, even whispered tales of a cloven-hoofed devil at Mansão do Forró. Act 1. Ancient Slumber and Phantom Waters. You see, before the grand theaters and modern hospitals were ever built, there was just the river and the forest. And the forces that governed them, they're ancient, untameable, and, according to local lore, precariously close to waking up. Our first stop is the imposing metropolitan cathedral, widely known as the Matriz Church. For many, it's a place of profound peace, but resting directly beneath the foundations of this sacred building is supposedly a colossal monster, a gigantic sleeping serpent. Locals truly believe this ancient creature has been dormant for centuries, and its mere presence threatens the very bedrock of the city itself. And the terror here isn't just conceptual, it's intensely physical. Imagine kneeling in prayer, seeking sanctuary, only to feel sudden, completely unexplained vibrations rolling through the floor. Others claim to hear muffled, deep, subterranean noises, like something impossibly massive shifting its weight in the pitch-black earth right below you. It brilliantly illustrates this incredible blend of deep faith and primal fear in the city. The church is a sanctuary, sure, but it also acts as a terrifying, silent countdown to an imminent awakening that locals believe could literally tear the heart of Manaus apart. Moving from the rumbling earth to the dark waters, experienced fishermen of the Rio Negro speak with absolute, genuine dread of a phantom ship. On nights when the new moon leaves the river in total pitch blackness, a silent, ancient vessel with torn sails is said to glide right against the current without making a single sound. Those unfortunate enough to actually witness these spectral sailors report an overwhelming, crushing sense of sadness heavy in the air. Even worse, they describe a hypnotic mental pull, this uncontrollable urge to just abandon their own boats, step aboard that doomed vessel, and trap themselves between worlds forever. No way, right? Act 2. High Society. Deep Shadows. We're shifting our focus now from ancient, mythical beasts to very real human tragedy. We're looking at how the incredible wealth and glamorous architecture of the rubber boom cycle became completely poisoned by envy, sorrow, and sudden death. Now, what's really interesting here is the sheer contrast. On one hand, we have the Teatro Amazonas, a symbol of absolute cultural glory and architectural marvel built during the peak of the rubber cycle. But its dark reflection is the legend of Cláudia. She was a brilliant opera singer whose incredible talent sparked a deadly envy. The story goes that a rival poisoned her right there in the dressing rooms during a performance. And her spirit, they say, never left those backstage corridors. Employees and performers at the theater report a rapid-fire escalation of paranormal occurrences. We are talking about sudden, freezing temperature drops backstage, frantic whispers echoing in empty voids, and fleeting silhouettes of a woman in an opera gown caught just out of the corner of your eye in the dressing room mirrors. It's kind of ironic when you think about it. Millions of dollars were spent importing European materials for this magnificent, world-class theater, and today, it's famous for being haunted by one incredibly angry, betrayed diva. The theater's beauty is undeniable, but it's matched only by the escalating anxiety you feel walking its halls alone at night. Just a short distance away is the Eduardo Ribeiro house, once the grand residence of a prominent governor, a place that hosted elegant high society parties. Now, it is strictly avoided by locals after dark. The mansion is famously haunted by a tragic figure known simply as the Weeping Widow. Witnesses report seeing a pale, elderly woman standing perfectly still, forever staring out from an upper window, waiting for a lost love who disappeared into the vastness of the Amazon River. It definitely makes you wonder who or what might be watching you from the upper windows of these historic buildings when you walk by. The visual of the widow is chilling enough, for sure, but the audio is what truly terrifies passersby. At night, people report hearing a low, agonizingly dragging cry echoing through the historic walls. And what makes this truly nightmarish is that her weeping is often accompanied by the faint, eerie sounds of a distant phantom waltz. It's as if the elegant ghosts of a century ago are still dancing around her eternal grief. Our exploration of high society haunts takes us next to the misty public library of the state of Amazonas, founded way back in 1871. This imposing stone and wood guardian of secrets is watched over by Talia Pedra. She was a former director who was both deeply loved and intensely feared. When she died under mysterious circumstances, get this, the very next day, a heavy portion of the ceiling collapsed directly onto her empty desk. Just a coincidence? Well, locals certainly don't think so. It seems Talia runs a strict library, even from beyond the grave. The phenomena reported here are incredibly vivid. Heavy books hurled from shelves by unseen hands, pages heard frantically turning and whispering in forgotten languages down in the basement. In one particularly terrifying account, a security guard followed a woman dressed in vintage clothing up the grand staircase, only to watch her completely dissolve into mist right before his terrified eyes. Imagine making your nightly rounds and watching a solid, human figure just evaporate into the humid air. Absolutely terrifying. Act 3. The Modern Ruins. We survived the ancient forces and the Victorian ghosts, but this is where the folklore stops feeling like distant history. It becomes visceral, immediate, and uncomfortably close to home. Right in the city center sits the Santa Casa de Misericórdia. Once a place of healing, it is now a massive, decaying labyrinth of broken glass and peeling paint, notoriously known as the abandoned hospital of shadows. Explorers brave enough to actually approach its empty corridors consistently report seeing moving shadows framed in the shattered windows, and they describe the distinct, skin-crawling sensation of being watched from the dark. So the crucial point here is how modern media interacts with these ancient fears. Back in May 2019, a viral video showed what looked like police officers sprinting in absolute terror out of the Santa Casa, supposedly fleeing an actual apparition. It literally sent the city into a panic. Later, it was debunked. Turns out they were just thrill seekers looking for a scare. But here is the fascinating takeaway. The debunking didn't even matter. The video completely solidified the hospital's dark reputation, proving that the psychological terror of the building is entirely real, even if the ghosts on that specific camera were not. Next, we head over to Ponta Negra Beach. By day, it's this beautiful, bustling hub of leisure, packed with families just enjoying the sun. But the old fishermen, they know that when the sun sets, that vibrant atmosphere completely vanishes, and the beach belongs to the encantados. These are enchanted spirits, the ancient guardians of the river and the forest. They are hypnotic entities that actively test the boundaries of anyone wandering a little too close to the dark tree line at night. The accounts from the fishermen are genuinely chilling. They describe hearing soft, irresistibly hypnotic female voices radiating out from the pitch-black forest. The song acts as a literal siren's call. Local lore is absolutely full of these terrifying stories. Tales of men who, completely unable to resist the pull, walked out of the safety of the moonlight, straight into the dense forest, and were simply never seen again. But perhaps the most tragic modern ruin of all is Selva Park. In the 1990s, this Amazon-themed water park was the absolute pinnacle of family joy in Manaus. But all that laughter abruptly ended in 2006, following the incredibly tragic drowning of a young boy. Out of respect for that very real loss, it's important to note how the atmosphere of the park instantly darkened after that. People stopped coming, the joy evaporated, and by 2012, it was totally bankrupt and completely abandoned to the encroaching jungle. To truly understand the horror of Selva Park, you have to wrap your head around the scale. 142,000. That is the number of square meters of rotting, rusting infrastructure currently being swallowed alive by the Amazon rainforest. To put that into perspective, it's an inescapable massive monument to a sudden tragedy, decaying right in the middle of civilization. Let's move to the perimeter and see how this builds a uniquely unsettling atmosphere. You see, the park didn't just decay. It's almost as if it manifested its trauma. People living near the immense boundary report seeing shadowy phantoms standing right at the edge of the cracked, empty pools. Even worse, they hear the faint, echoing voices of children begging for help from the tall, overgrown grass. And anyone who actually steps onto the property describes an intense, inexplicable cold rising up from the stagnant water. completely defying the heavy tropical heat. From the colossal serpent sleeping under the church, to the weeping widow, to the echoing voices of a ruined water park, the lesson of Manaus is crystal clear. The past simply refuses to be buried. These entities, these memories, these shadows, they haven't moved on. They are still out there. They are still waiting. Which brings us to a final, lingering thought. In a city where the jungle constantly fights to reclaim the concrete, and where a century of joy and tragedy is layered so thickly in the humid air, if you find yourself walking the shadowed streets of Manaus tonight, listening to the distant rustle of the trees, who is walking beside you? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning and maybe, just maybe, keep the lights on tonight.